Hello and welcome to the Livrot Mic Command Hotkey tutorial. This tutorial will take a little bit longer, maybe half an hour, and I will try and highlight each part for you so that you can easily find it again if you want to look at the part again later. And now let's start here. Settings, Hotkey, and you see here a lot of hotkey buttons. These are the hotkeys of the program, and each of these hotkeys is situated on a button. And these buttons have three functions each. So if you left click, you can start recording the hotkey, double click and you can erase the hotkey, and right click you can configure each hotkey. Now these very same hotkey buttons are found here in the command list, and so you can record a hotkey for each command that you have here. This could be a command, I would say hello into the microphone, and the output would be a plain text output test into the notepad. And I could also trigger this output using a hotkey F6. And this could also start a macro or whatever. And so with one command output, maybe a macro, I could, for example, send out shift control, if this would be a macro. Oh, where's the focus here now? Shift control G. And I would have another command maybe, shift control G, and what would happen if I would say here this phrase here, test. I would say test into the microphone. No, I would say hello into the microphone, and the output, this would be a macro command. The output would be shift control G, for example. This is the freeware version, but this is just for the example. So one command could have the output that triggers the other hotkey and therefore the other command. And now you could trigger multiple other commands if you want to, by using a longer macro and stuff. So what you see is the hotkeys can be used for command cascading and channeling. You can also start other commands using audio responses, and this is just another way. You can also for sure just use these hotkeys to trigger some output that you would normally have, like open a file or so. Now you have two ways to trigger your commands, okay? But using the hotkey way, you can also artificially send out hotkeys using macros or even plain text. A plain text output, like for example T, and a hotkey. Here, if I would record a hotkey T, then if I would say into the hello in the microphone, this would work with a plain text command. The output here would trigger the hotkey there. Okay. Okay, I wanted to show you that these hotkey buttons are also available here for each command in the command list, and it's just the same as these hotkey buttons that I will be talking about now here all the time. Okay, let's start. So left click on the title bar and record a title hotkey T. Now if I hit T again, title bar is gone. Again, title bar is back on. Wonderful. Okay, now let me write here weather in Notepad. The moment that I hit T, title bar is gone, but there's no T in Notepad, so it is eaten away from the keyboard once again. And it works system-wide from one application to the other. So let's read about it here in the Tool tab. Right click on the title bar and go into Settings and read in the Tool tab. A standard Windows system hotkey works system-wide, and any application is eaten away from the keyboard, which we just have seen. So you can configure this as temporary eating, and this is a kind of a trick that it does. It waits for this delay and then it unregisters the key from the system so that it becomes available again. And when it is unregistered, it can be sent out on the output stream, and it would arrive in the application actually has the focus, which would have been Notepad. And it would arrive after this delay, and just after sending the key out, it would be registered again for the next use. So again, the next time, this program here would be the first to be informed of the hotkey being pressed, okay, and would trigger the function that it is on first. So title bar would be triggered first, and 2 seconds later the T would be sent out. Let's see this now here. Oh. Title bar first, and now the T is popping up here in Notepad. Once again, there is a T. We have also seen the color change here from red to green. This is some color coding here for hotkeys. You see different colors showing you the kind of hotkey which you have there recorded and configured. And so the red color is like traffic light, it is blocked and the key would not come through never. It is eaten away now from the system. It is only arriving in Livrot Mic Command if you have a red hotkey. And a green hotkey would be sent out, maybe directly with 0 delay or maybe with a delay. But green would be sent out. Now let's hit T with 0 delay. You see the T is here in Notepad, and it was before. Finally it is faster here on the title bar, but you cannot perceive the difference, I think. This is very fast. It looks like the same time. Okay. Now, let's record a more straightforward hotkey here. Maybe standard here. There's a key eating. So Shift Control T. This is what you would use maybe, for example. Now, if I hit T, wonderful. Shift T, I can use Shift T in Notepad. Shift Control T. Okay, this triggers the title bar, and we know it is red. It is eaten away. So if I would have a function here with Shift Control T, I could no longer trigger the function. Okay, you have to be aware of this when you record a Windows system hotkey, that the very key combination can now only be used for title bar if it is red here. If you wanted to use somewhere else at the same time, sometimes you would like to do this, maybe, then you can choose this temporary eating, send it back out directly or later if you want to. Now we have seen these options. And what is quite nice maybe is also that you know that this can only be used for your title bar, for example, or for the microphone, because then you can be sure that you can use it everywhere in the system without having to fear maybe in Adobe Photoshop or in other complicated programs like Visual Studio. Then you can be sure that you don't trigger another function by accident with the hotkey that you wanted to use for the microphone or the title bar. If it is red, then you can be sure that it will only do what you wanted it to do here in the title bar. If it is green, you will trigger another function somewhere else. So, maybe. And then you can also record something more exotic here. This is rarely used somewhere else, and you can be practically sure that it is not used anywhere else. And this works just the same, Windows key and menu key and T. So, okay then, let's go over here to low-level hotkeys. Right click and read about it in the tooltip first. A low-level hotkey is a chain of recorded events from all devices connected. So mouse, keyboard, joystick, gamepad, anything with buttons. Could be your KitchenAid if you have a USB cable connected to it and there are some buttons on it, okay? To trigger the hotkey, the low-level hotkey, you must exactly repeat what you have recorded. So all button release and key release events count, not only the key presses. So I want to show you this one, and I will start recording a low-level hotkey. Please have a look at the taskbar icon here. It is now red, the background, like when the microphone is running. It is waiting for any device events now, and I will start, and look what happens. It's turning green and going down to 0, and the next event again, starting again. So you might guess what this is. When it hits 0, the recording stops. This is a record stop delay automatically. You can configure it. It is very practical. If you hold 3 keys down, then you might be happy that the recording stops automatically after a while and you don't have to grab out for an extra stop key. If you want to, you can configure a stop key here for the hotkey. This is most useful for macros, but you can also stop low-level hotkey recording using a stop hotkey. Okay. Now, this is an automatic stop delay, which is quite useful, and this is taken away from the macro tab in the full version. So in the full version, you have to search this delay slider in the macro tab. It is situated below the record start delay. Finally, it is taken from there, and I have installed it here because it's quite practical also for low-level recording, I found. Now, let's have a look at this hotkey, right-click on it and see the events that have been recorded. Mouse left button down, and while holding it down, pressing T, releasing T, and afterwards releasing the left mouse button. And with the last button release event, I would trigger the title bar hotkey, okay? There it goes. So by combining 2 simple things that I have here around, I am creating a new hotkey. Now, and this could even be simpler, and I could still use a T, and for sure the left mouse click. But in combination, makes the title bar appear. You see there's no T popping up because I'm holding the left mouse button down. This is because in Windows, if you hold the left mouse button down, you cannot type anything on the keyboard. You can try it now on your computer. if you hold the left mouse button down, not coming through. This has nothing to do with low-level hotkeys. I will show you now in a second. I want to just show before, you can make this easier by holding both down. Just hold the left button down and press the T and not releasing them until the recording stops. And this works just the same. And I can use the T and I can use the left mouse button. And so this is a nice hotkey. And you can easily remember T for title bar and stuff. Useful on the desktop, but in a game or a simulation, the T might come through because it's only in Windows that is eaten away when holding the left mouse button down. But then again, you can also configure key eating here for low-level hotkeys to eat it away and not sending it through. Now, that's what serial is a key T. Maybe you don't want to keep the T. Now, okay, let's record something more simple here. Just key press and release. If I hit T, the T will pop up in Notepad, so it is not eaten away, and it works system-wide. In the other application, I can see the title bar popping up and going away. So this is low level. It is just recognized. So it can be a longer event chain and would be recognized. Okay, we have seen this. And just maybe record the right mouse button, for example. Now I've recorded the right mouse button. The moment that I hit the right mouse button, you have seen to open this, the title bar went away. I can eat the right mouse button away from the input stream again. Let's say for 1 second. You see the other color here is yellow, temporary eating, white for eating. So if you see red and white, keys will not come through. Okay, all other colors will come through, but red and white will not come through. The white is for low-level hotkeys that are eaten away. Okay, now we have this in red. If I right-click here, title bar comes on, and 1 second later I have this desktop menu. Again, 1 second later here, and if I move the mouse in between, then the click will happen there where the mouse is at. Okay. Now, what else? Comparison, system hotkeys, low-level hotkeys. Now, okay. I've prepared this here. So a Windows system hotkey is a mixture of modifier keys and a final key, which would then trigger the hotkey. It could just be the final key without any modifier. And this key combination is eaten away from the keyboard. And then there's this trig option which I have created, which would send the keys back out after unregistering first and registering again. So you have some flexibility already with this. But you cannot use joystick buttons or mouse buttons. Okay, now, And then in low level, we have an event chain recorded from all devices, including key release and button release events, if we want to. And we would have to exactly repeat what we have recorded to trigger the low level hotkey. And it is just recognized. What is happening on the devices is just recognized and is not eaten away, in contrast to a Windows system hotkey. But you can eat away events. But you can only eat away keyboard events and mouse button events. Okay, not joystick buttons. But you can eat away the 4th and 5th and the 3rd mouse button and the right mouse button, as you have seen. But no joystick buttons can be eaten away at the moment. You can also record the wheel turns, so the little clicks that the wheel makes, and count them and trigger hotkey with it. Okay, then something else. If I would record a low-level hotkey, which is event eating, so the white hotkey that you have seen, and by holding down T and pressing Z afterwards, and configuring it as key press eating, then if I would afterwards hit T and hold it down, it would be eaten away, not appear in Notepad, and because it recognized and is eaten, then the Z, I would hold that one down, while holding T down, would hold down Z afterwards. It would be eaten again, and the hotkey would be triggered, it complete and recognized, and this is it, the function would be triggered. And afterwards the next event would not be eaten away, and if you would press T again, it would be eaten away, but you have to release it first. And then something else later, if you would hit T, again it would be recognized as part of the eating hotkey, and the first one would be eaten away. And if you afterwards release T, the event would not be eaten. But it wouldn't help you any, because the press was already been eaten. And what is happening is, even though you did not press that afterwards while holding down T, even though you did not do so, the key T has been eaten. So finally the T is now sacrificed and can start other macros and other hotkeys by pressing another button afterwards. So if you would do so with another key, which is less often used, then, for example, I have this key here below, escape. If I hit it twice, it gives me this, and if I hit it with shift, gives me this degree sign here, and I never use this one. If I would sacrifice this one, for example, holding it down, pressing T, and waiting until the recording stops, and I could trigger the title bar now, and okay, it would show up here, because yes, it is not eaten away. But if I choose eating away, it would be sacrificed, because it would no longer work, this key, on its own, because like I just have shown with the T key, I can hit it now as often as I want, nothing happens here. With shift it's just the same. But if I hold it down and press T, okay, it triggers the title bar. So finally now I have a modifier key created on my keyboard, which if I hold it down, it turns the whole keyboard into a hotkey starter keyboard. Yes, I call this a hot keyboard here, this type of hotkey. And it is quite nice if you work with both hands on the keyboard inside of an editor, and maybe in a silent environment where you can not use speech to trigger your hotkeys or your commands. And then it would be nice to have such a kind of a modifier key, which I've just shown, okay? Because now I could record the same key and afterwards press L for the log, or maybe press L and additionally O, so 2 keys afterwards, would trigger the on-screen display log and so on. So you can create hundreds of low-level macros starting with one sacrificed key. You could also start with the force mouse button if you are working with one hand on the keyboard and one hand on the mouse. And so you have, there are some examples now what you can do with it. You can also record a word as a hotkey. Title, T-I-T-L-E. If I write title now, title bar goes away and title bar comes back on. Okay. You have seen this too. Then about device-bound hotkeys. For example, in a flight simulator, you would maybe like to have a button on your joystick, a low-level hotkey, which would, if you press it down and hold it down, would be your push-to-talk button into the radio, to give your radio commands to the simulation. Okay. Press button down and wait until the recording stops. And now this is a button 10 on any DirectX button device, so any gamepad that you have connected. If you have a lot of gamepads, which is sometimes the case or more often with flight simulators, then every button 10 on each of these devices would now trigger the microphone. This is not what you want. You want to have button 10 of this very device to trigger your microphone, and you choose device bound. So only this device is now permitted to use button 10 for the microphone. And all the other devices, button 10 would be ignored and do other stuff that you have created for it. Okay. One thing with device-bound hotkeys, if you check here auto enable on reconnect, they would turn back on after a disconnection. I want to show you the disconnection now. I have a button here to change my mouse and computer to the other, and the joystick is connected there too. You see now it shows on the hotkey microphone, it shows disco, and below in the title bar it shows hotkey device absent. So with these device-bound hotkeys you are always well informed if you should start into the mission without having connected the joystick or so. Well, just so you see this visual feedback about it. And if this one would have been unchecked here, it would still show disco above. So if you want to uncheck this and you have the information, if in the middle of your mission maybe you have a faulty connection and it would have been disconnected, so you can see still if there is disco, you can be sure that it has been disconnected in between. Okay. Now something else, recording maybe something simple here. Key press T. So if I would have a keyboard event and make it device bound, if I would have a second keyboard, now it would be very nice. I have the T now here, and I can trigger the title bar with this hotkey. And if I would choose device bound on the second keyboard, then I would like to choose eating too, because I don't want the T to pop up. For example, if I'm working in an editor and want to trigger hotkeys on the second keyboard. But then again, you would have to reach out for the second keyboard all the time. It's maybe nicer to use this modifier key stuff. But on the other hand, it's impossible. You can't use device bound and key eating together, okay? It turns off. This is for a reason. This is because the moment that the device bound, the device information is coming in, which keyboard has sent the T, it's much too late. This has to be researched in the system and stuff. And this takes your time, and at that moment the key is already distributed by the system. So the system gives the opportunity to decide to eat the key, but only for a small time delay. If this time delay passes, the system sends the key out to the application has a focus, okay? And to research the device that is responsible for the key event takes time. And so this cannot be combined, because when I find out about the device which is sending the hotkey, the key press, and the key is already distributed. So this is why this turns off. And the other way around, if you want to choose device bound, turns off eating. Cannot be selected together. This is also described in the tooltips. And one another thing, for example, in the joystick here, I cannot choose eat button. Oh, what is this here? Why did it jump there? I don't know. If I choose eat button, well, this turns off device bound, but I cannot select this, because it's only possible for mouse buttons at the moment. Okay? Not for joystick buttons. Now we have seen this and the device bound stuff. Auto enable. Auto enable. Show key up events. The comma T is a key up event. If you don't want to see them, just uncheck this and you have more space to see all the key events maybe. For example, with the title bar before here, if you record such a word, then you would maybe like to read it like this and not have the comma T in between and comma E and everything, okay? Then we have here eaten events still trigger other hotkeys. If I would have a hotkey here T, and I would have another low-level hotkey recorded consisting of 3 keys and T in the middle, and this one would be key eating. So if this one would be unchecked here, the key eating I would start to maybe type in the RTZ, and when I hit T it would be eaten away, and this hotkey would not be informed about it, and it would still wait for the T, which would never come because always eaten away. If you check this one, it will come although it is eaten away. So the eating would not apply to Livrot Mic MC if this one is checked. Okay, this is explained in the tooltip, but it would apply to other applications for sure. Then you have some relaxed trigger, and what this does is also explained here in the tooltip. And if you want to maybe read about it now, I'm a little tired to explain it again. I've explained this 50 times. Okay, so now if you have recorded something like this hotkey here, and you're just typing it in, and you're hitting the R, releasing the R, hitting the T, releasing the T, and in the middle of this session that you type it in there, maybe you have maybe a rudder pedal connected to your flight simulator, and on the rudder pedal it triggers a key event, but you have not used the rudder pedal here in Livrot Mic Command, and this key event jumps in between while you type in this, and it destroys the reconnection, recognition triggering, and it would start again because there came another event in, so it could not be this low-level hotkey, because it thinks, okay, it is not this event chain, so it starts again at 0. And maybe you don't have used the rudder anywhere for hotkeys, so finally it should not jump in between and destroy and make you start again at 0. So then keep this checked. Otherwise, if you uncheck this one, devices that are not used in hotkeys can disturb the recognition. Sorry, I don't know this word. Okay, okay. Now, okay, I want to stop the program. Global override options, want to start again. It's all messy now. I've been messing around with the program too long now. global override. Let's record a hotkey here. Global override. So I can, if I want to, use a global override for the settings of all program hotkeys and command list hotkeys. So if I check this one, the settings from here would be used for all your hotkeys. If you uncheck this one, the settings of each hotkey on its own would be used again, okay? So this one should call temporary eating. I have to change this. This is an old checkbox here. This just the same as temporary eating. And you can change the delay here, and if you check this one, this would be applied to all your Windows system hotkeys. Now, okay. The same for low-level hotkeys, so it's a global override. Alright, so now here below you have a global editor. So if you want to, you can disable all your Windows system hotkeys and your low-level hotkeys, which is quite nice, because if you have downloaded a profile, maybe in the full version, with a lot of macros, and which can also be triggered by hotkey, and you want to be sure, you want to test it first. I will explain this more in this security tutorial. You want to test this first, and then you can disable all the hotkeys here before starting to test, so that you can be sure that you don't trigger any macro by accident, or without wanting to. Then again, you can apply the settings from above here to each of your Windows system hotkeys in the command list and the program hotkeys. The same for low-level hotkeys and stuff. Okay, so some global editing options, so that you don't have to race through all your hotkeys to change something and disable them all or stuff. You can do this here globally. You can also convert Windows system hotkey Shift Control R to a low-level hotkey. Is now in blue, and you see it's only the key press events. It does not create key release events, so that you can trigger it just the same way, but you have to pay attention. You have to press Control first. Okay, you have to stay in this order. This is low level, and it's very strict. You can convert this back to Windows system hotkeys. It asks you for permission, because you would lose, for sure, you would lose a mouse button events and joystick button events, and also key release events and stuff. But it can convert back if it is possible. Okay, now then we have here a remap device button. It will open the editor in the multi-edit mode, and this is for if you have disconnected devices which have been used in device-bound hotkeys. Then they would be shown here. This happens when you download a profile made by somebody else using a lot of gamepads and stuff. Then you could choose one here, and it would highlight all the hotkeys concerned, and you could choose here from your devices. There would be devices shown here which could replace the device. Then you could change one for it and replace it. So you can scroll through the list and see which commands are concerned and decide which of your devices you want to take for it. Okay, so it gives you some freedom, and you don't have to key in all the hotkeys on your own again. You can decide which of your devices shall replace the device-bound hotkeys recorded by somebody else. So, okay, you can use speech recognition to trigger hotkeys in the program. Also, can trigger program hotkeys using speech recognition. If I record simple key, press T here for the example. This can be a long and complicated hotkey, for example, but you would have to record the same hotkey in a macro, and this macro you can start it for sure here by speech recognition. Let's say hello and send out T. This would just be a plain text output for the example. No hotkey needed. Okay, what I need now is a microphone hotkey for sure. So if I hit a microphone hotkey and say hello now, it should make the title bar disappear. Hello. There you see hello. Okay, we have seen this. This is because it sent out T, which triggers the title bar hotkey T here. There. Okay, we have seen this. Then something else here in the editor again. I could record a hotkey, Shift Control V, Control V for paste, and in green, because we need this. And with this hotkey I could start an application which would then grab something from the clipboard, something which I actually want to paste and insert somewhere, and put it on a stack or stack it up on a file or in a folder, and each one in a different file, so that you could make a backup of your clipboards while you're working, and you wouldn't have to back up each clipboard yourself if you want to use something like this. Okay, so it can make you more efficient with some ideas like this also. All the way. And then you could record, for example, if in a game you hit by accident sometimes a Windows key and you are annoyed by it, you could just, let me leave the editor first here, you could just record the Windows key, okay, because it pops up and brings to front the desktop. And let's see the key eat events, key up events, and configure this as key eating, right? So now in Livrot Mic Command this would still work. I think it's because it is recognized in the input channel of the program itself before I can eat it away, but it's kind of bizarre. Maybe this has to do with the way that the program has been started already and afterwards this is registered a Windows System Hotkey, but for any other application this works. Even though if I start it now, like Explorer now here, this changes the title bar and not popping up the start bar or start panel. Okay, here title bar now. Okay, we have seen this trick. So a lot of options with these hotkeys. I hope you had some inspiration with this and some help. Yes, thank you very much for watching.